Are there alternate versions of history? Are there things that have happened that many of us remember that history says didn't? Well, this list is going to delve into some of those things that millions would swear they remember happening one way, when they happened entirely different. This is a list that might hurt your head, so brace yourself. This is Crazy Examples of the Mandela Effect. 14. Where's the... Okay now, somebody has to be messing with us, or they're going back and changing history as we know it. Do you know this picture? Do you remember old King Henry VIII holding a turkey leg in his hand as he posed for this portrait? We know that when you say it out loud it sounds a little odd. Why would a king want to be painted with a turkey leg in his hand? But we'd swear that we remember him having one. And it was funny. We can almost remember laughing at the photo sometime throughout our schooling or with friends or something. We can't remember specifics though, so maybe it didn't really happen? He had a turkey leg. However, that's not the case, and his portrait was painted sans leg. But we're not the only ones to remember this. Lots of other people do. Mandela. 13. Champions of the world. Okay, so we all know the Queen song, We Are the Champions, right? How do you remember the song ending? It goes on and on about being the champions, but do you remember it ending 'cause we are the champions? Or 'cause we are the champions of the world? We distinctly remember the of the world. We would swear that it was there once upon a time. The memory of emphasizing and dramatically ending the song with of the world is so vivid and sharp, but apparently that's not how the song goes, nor has it ever gone that way, in this reality at least. 12. Challenger. If you were around in the 80s, you might remember the day the Challenger space shuttle faced its sad, catastrophic fate. That day was January 28, 1986, and it was due to a faulty O-ring that the shuttle failed and exploded not long after takeoff. It was a tough, sad day for the United States, and it was made even sadder considering it was to be the flight that Krista McAuliffe, a school teacher, got to be a part of after winning a spot on board. There was so much media coverage and so many eyes paying attention that it may come as a surprise that many people remember the Challenger disaster happening 2 years earlier, in 1984. It's actually quite a common example of the Mandela Effect, and it makes you wonder if maybe, in some universe, it didn't happen before when we remember it now. 11. In the City, right? Does anyone know the super popular show Sex and the City being called Sex in the City at some point in time? Because we distinctly remember it being called that, and it just seems to make more sense. When did they change it? Apparently never, at least according to all those associated with the show, but many totally remember it having in the title rather than and. And the new name of the show, the real name of the show, has people somewhat confused. Darn reality. 10. Why are they doing this to us? Okay, now this is one we're sure about. Absolutely positive about. At least we think we are. Seeing that Jiffy peanut butter isn't a real thing is really messing with our minds and making us question our grip on reality right now. Jif? That's what it's called? That's what it's been called all this time. No Jiffy. What is this, some kind of boring single-syllable world that we're living in? This is ridiculous. We don't know precisely who is messing with us, but someone is obviously doing it. How can so many people remember all of these things, but they've never really been? This is like the Twilight Zone. 9. I am to Papa. So this is one significantly widely believed example of the Mandela Effect. How in the world, or in the galaxy, do so many people remember the line being, Luke, I am your father, when it's actually, no, I am your father. It's the truth. We're not lying. Go back and watch the original film and you'll see for yourself. The first time we did that, it sounded strange because we were anticipating a wholly different line, and then when Darth Vader busted out the no instead of Luke, our heads began to hurt. Millions upon millions of people remember the line beginning with the name of the protagonist and not a no. It's even been quoted in movies as Luke. So what gives? We don't know, but it's amazing how we all remember one thing and it's actually another. This is some kind of conspiracy. 8. While we're talking about it, yeah. So while we're on the subject of Star Wars, we figured we'd mention this other thing about it that barely anyone remembers and hardly anyone ever noticed. C-3PO's leg. Have you ever noticed that he has one silver leg but the rest of his body is gold? How did we never catch this? Because it didn't used to be that way, that's how. Or at least that's the idea. We don't think we're crazy, nor do the millions of others who swear that C-3PO was entirely gold. Why did they go in and change this after the fact? How did they get their hands on all of our VHSs and DVDs from our homes to edit and alter them? Sneaky little Siths. 7. Popped like a balloon. This picture is a huge part of history and is probably one of the more famous photos of all time. The setting is Tiananmen Square. The players are several tanks and one unknown man. The outcome? The survival of the man, but one iconic picture. But did you know that there are those who would swear that this scene ended much differently? In fact, they don't remember this man walking away from this because they see him getting run down by the tanks in their memories. They remember the tanks not stopping and waiting for him to move. Instead, they merely rolled right over him and kept going. What is this, North Korea? Thankfully, the version of history in this reality had the man survive, and he lived to protest another day. 6. Oscar Meyer. Except it's not. The real name of the company is Oscar, M-A-Y-E-R. Isn't that strange? Couldn't you swear you remembered it being spelled with 2 E's instead of just the one? When we look back in our memories, Meyer with an A just doesn't seem to fit with the brand at all. Wouldn't this be pronounced like Mayer, like John Mayer? Meyer is supposed to be spelled with an E as the first vowel. At least in our mind's eye, that's what we see associated with the meat company. We would have fought and argued and refused to give in had someone told us that it was M-A-Y-E-R before stumbling across this on the internet. What the heck? Where are we? We want some ruby red slippers. 5. SWAYZE baby. We all know that Patrick Swayze sadly passed away from pancreatic cancer back in 2009. Well, at least some of us know that. There are some, though, who totally remember the actor making a recovery from his fatal disease and living on to, well, live on. Maybe they're thinking of Michael Douglas or even De Niro or something, but those who remember the alternate version of history would swear by it and find it hard to believe that Swayze was taken from us by the deadly disease. Sadly, the man who brought us all those great films in his time, like Dirty Dancing, Ghost, and The Outsiders, was taken from us, and it's most unfortunate. But maybe he does live on in an alternate universe, somewhere quite close to our own. Makes you kinda happy to consider it, right? 4. Monopoly monocle. Wait, so the Monopoly man doesn't wear a monocle? What? Since when? Apparently, he's never worn one, so that answers our question. But we most definitely remember him wearing one, don't we? There are some who say that he did rock the monocle for a time, and at some point, the game changed, and they took away his iconic eyepiece. But a lot is pointing to the fact that he maybe never wore one in the first place. How does this happen? How is there so much conflicting information? There are lots of theories out there that try to explain this whole thing, but most of the information about the Monopoly Man, aka Rich Uncle Pennybags, says that he never wore one and that this is, in fact, yet another prime example of the Mandela Effect. 3. Pikachu's tail. Were you into Pokemon as a kid? If you were born in the late 1980s through the early 2000s, you probably remember the iconic Pikachu as he was Ash Ketchum's pet Pokemon and friend. Do you remember him having a black-tipped tail, or did it just ride out yellow all the way up? From what we can recall, that little bugger most definitely had a black tip on that little happy wagger, and nobody else can tell us differently. Except they are telling us differently. Apparently, little Pika never had that black-tipped tail that we remember, and it's genuinely confusing because how? How do so many of us remember this tale that never really existed? Or did something somewhere along the timeline change? Did Doc and Marty really mess something up and send us skewing down this alternate timeline beginning in 1985? We don't know. This is all too much. 2. Berenstain Bears. This is one that we're probably never going to get past considering everything in history is wrong, and we're right, and there's no arguing it. But there is, sadly, and it's not really Berenstain with an E-I-N, but Berenstain with an A-I-N. How can our memories be so faulty? How can we completely remember it being spelled with an E instead of an A? Who would spell it with an A in the first place? There are millions upon millions of people who would stand alongside us and argue that it was an E to their dying days. So at least we're not alone on this one. But, as everything seems to show, we're wrong, and our childhoods are forever going to be tainted with this false memory in our minds, forever. Just makes us wonder what else we remembered incorrectly from when we were kids. On second thought, we don't really want to know. Darn it, Mandela. 1. Nelson Mandela. Alright, so this is the one the whole effect is named after. So here we go. Nelson Mandela was a South African revolutionary and was even the president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. But many remember him not even making it into the 90s. They remember him passing away in prison in the 1980s, and many of them have full-fledged memories of his funeral being shown on TV way back then. In reality, he passed in 2013, following a battle with a respiratory infection, or so they tell us. Tons of people from all over the globe would swear on everything they have that he died in the 1980s, but that just doesn't seem to be what history tells us in this reality. Obviously, enough people believed this to have the whole effect named after him, an effect that drives us all mad and makes us feel as though we belong in some kind of psychiatric ward. Oh, Mandela, thanks for giving a name to this horrible thing. Rest in peace. How? Why? Who's going around messing with history and the memories of millions, maybe billions of people around the globe? The Mandela Effect is genuinely crazy, and we hope to one day have the answers as to why so many collectively remember different versions of the same events and things. Did this hurt your brain too? Tell us what you thought in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and watch out for new videos from us every few days.